So strap in and get ready.
The leaders in NRL Supercoach are incoming. Bringing you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and climb up the rankings.
You're now listening to the Insight NRL Show with your hosts, Brain, Mattrix, and Whisperer.
Yes, welcome back. It's the Inside NRL Show, bringing you all your NRL Supercoach preseason content to help you get your teams ready for round one. I'm your host, SC Braino. My co-hosts are with me, Mattrix and Whisperer. Boys, Josh, firstly, how are you, mate? With 2RF, I really hope you haven't talked too much today because we've got a bit coming up.
Yeah, in our lovely intro when our American friend says "strap in," it's no more fitting than today because it's going to be a fucking long one, but. It's a position that has many options, and I'm no mathematician, but no one bats 100, so you got to try and find the right ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of finding the right ones, the Mattrix is with us. Matty, you said your 2RF could be the best 2RF this year. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I've got what'd you say? No one bats 100. I've got about six people batting number 7 on the list here. But I reckon there's a bit of firepower, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's one of those positions, and we'll talk about it a lot in depth, obviously, today, but I reckon how you go into RF and how you start into RF could define your season. There's a lot of very similar picks at hooker, at front row forward, even half, 5'8". You know, we're starting to get into some pretty obvious options there in those positions, but 2RF is wide open, boys, so we've got I don't even know, we've probably got about 25 players to talk through, and that's underdoing it. So we'll cover them very soon. But guys, of course, the show is always brought to you by the Standard Squeeze, Ryan from Hammond's Home Finance and Bonus Bank. Make sure to hit subscribe, hit like, and follow and leave us a review if you're listening on audio as well. If you're watching us on YouTube, I apologize for our mugs. We'll try our best to look a bit better next time. But hit the subscribe button and a like as well if you'd like. Guys, make sure to join the Unlimited League as well. I think we've got about 500 people so far. 777-141 is the code. It's a free league to join. Total points, obviously. And the winner takes home an SC Champions ring. So make sure to get involved and take us on. Josh, how are you sitting at 2RF? Because, look, a lot of us are looking at mid-range options here, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm just pulling out my team quickly because it changes every second hour of the day. My most expensive player currently right now is Sean Bloor, and that's 445k. And that goes away from pretty much every principle that I've ever built my teams on in years gone by. I've always had one sort of gun that's at value, and then one sort of maybe slightly underpriced gun, someone like a Cam Murray this year, for example. But this year, yeah, 445k is my most popular, and I've got 5 options, then maybe the 6 if we'll touch on this new Dragons Cheapie that's popped up. So I've potentially got 6 options that I can play at 2RF this year. And yeah, it's definitely different to hooker where I've spent, combined 600k. 6 viable for me in 2RF.
Yeah, and I'm similar. I assume you're the same, Matty. Have you got any primos in your 2RF, or are you going mid-range as well?
Yeah, my most expensive is Bo Firma. Look, and lots of 4 guys in the 400s, which is usually something I go away from because I think it's quite mid. But I think all these guys can go big, have a chance of being late 500, 600k blokes by the end of the year.
That's the goal, isn't it? Pick them up at 450 and hopefully they turn into 650 keepers. Or at worst case, they get up to 650, 700 like Hopgood did last year, and you can move him on to a guy that's a bit more reliable but at the back end of the season. Matty, do you want to take us through the top 10 most owned at the time of recording?
Yeah, look, I'll start with Sean Lane. 39% owned, which... I don't think it comes as a massive surprise, but when Supercoach opened, he was the highest owned player in Supercoach, which was a bit of a surprise to me. Josh Curran, 421k. Viliami Fafita, 204k at 29% owned. Brendan Piakura, 426k, 26% owned. Tallis Duncan, 320k, 25% owned. He was pretty exciting last year. Jed Cartwright, almost a bottom dollar cheapie, going to the Knights at 23.6% owned. Big Tino, 790k, probably helped by the front row forward duel, 18.5% owned. My boy Bo Firma, 18% owned. Josh Wong, Sua Wong, 462k at 15% owned, and Kickout, 488k at 14% owned. A lot of mids.
Yeah, for good reason. I guess everybody's following the trend for us. I mean, Tino's the outlier in this group at nearly 800k. Everybody else is sub 450 or sub 470. Josh, I'm assuming you've got a fair few of these guys, and they're popular for good reason, right?
Yeah, on the Sean Lane one, it was interesting. So I got very bored end of November and sort of opened up the Supercoach app and just sort of had a look as to who we could target next year. This is before the app opens or anything. And I sort of had a look at Sean Lane. I was like, hang on, there could be something here. I'd never expected it to get to this sort of levels of hype, but it is for good reason, I guess. Averaged 62 2 years ago, and then obviously had the busted jaw, had the preseason injury, and sort of came back a little bit umming and ahhing. All of these mid-range 2RFs have merit. So, for example, just my guys, I've got Lane, Blore, Pierre Cora, Curran, and my man crush, Kai Pierce-Paul. Lane underpriced due to injury and sort of, coming back and forth last year. Blore, obviously underutilized at the Tigers. Pierre Cora, rookie, playing a little bit of bench minutes here or there. Curran, same thing, bench minutes here or there. All four of those guys looks like they're getting starts. So, same with Kickout as well. Another one of these guys that had preseason injuries. Tino is the only outlier here. I would say Tino's ownership at 18.5%. I reckon 18.4% of that is at front row forward. I'd be very, very surprised if much of that's at 2RF itself. For feeder, Cartwright, these are guys that are just spot fillers. And then Tallis Duncan, he could be Smithies, he could be Kai Pierce-Paul, he could be Raymond Faitala Mariner. Like, there is a lot of these 350k guys as well who at the moment, like when we're building our teams, we're not really looking at players. We're just more looking at structures. And Duncan could be just one of those 350k guys. So all of these top 10s have merit. The only one that really sticks out to me is probably Kickout at 14.2%. That seems a little high, but I guess just for how devastating he can be. We haven't seen that at the Bulldogs. So hopefully we can see it kick on at the Bulldogs rather than it being at Penrith.
Yeah. Are we picking him at 488k? Or I think it's not. I don't think that price is right. I think it's 448k or something like that. Are we picking him based off what he did at Penrith? Because obviously you just mentioned he hasn't really done it yet at the Bulldogs. Matty, is there any interest at all from you for Kickout, or is it one of those ones that you just need to see something from him at the Bulldogs first before you buy in?
Yeah, and I think it's a really good spot to pivot. Like, if Bo Firma isn't the right guy, now that we said that he was 488k and 448k, he's actually 468k. So
he's right in the middle. Smack.
There we go.
Glad we got there in the end, guys.
We did.
But like it's not going to be a far cry from Sean Blore if he doesn't really look himself at Melbourne. Maybe he plays a few more bench minutes and doesn't have that 80-minute role that I hope that he has. Like, maybe, we can just move one of these guys to Kickout and no harm, no foul. That's all I'm thinking with Kickout. And honestly, that's all I'm thinking with a lot of these mid-range guys. Like, it's not far to go Piakura to Kickout if Piakura isn't the guy that we expect him to be in the first 3 weeks of Supercoach. So it makes it really easy that there's so many 400 to 500k options that we can pivot. I nearly feel like, I'll probably waste a trade here or there in the second row forward to try and get the right ones, but I think it'll be easy to get the right ones this year.
Yeah, I agree. There is probably some merit, and I've seen some stuff floating around from a few creators talking about trying to have someone at maybe a premium price of some sort. We'd probably say 600k plus, just to give you the freedom to move up and down wherever you need to. Like, let's just say one of these guys at 600k, 650k really pops off and becomes that kind of must-have with a role that we didn't expect or something like that. It's quite tough to go from a 450 up to a 650 to get on that guy. So is there merit, Josh, potentially to looking at one of these primos potentially that we'll talk about tonight?
Yeah, I guess this is the structure debate. For me personally, I'm not, just because there's so many options. If there was only, say, 4 or 5 450k options, then I'd be more inclined to, because, as much as I think the 5 guys I've picked are all going to be guns, they're not going to be. One of them's going to suck. Like, that's just the nature of how averages work. And one of these 650k guys could be amazing. We've heard Cam Murray's going to play more time on the park in a sort of an edge role. So yeah, he could be the guy. But for me, if Bloor sucks, there's about 6 other people I can move to. If there was only like 2, then yeah, maybe I look at potentially moving off and playing up for a premium. But for me, just with how wide the net is, the most I'm probably keen to spend is, maybe something like 520 on, say, Adam Elliott that we'll touch on as well. But for me, I can see the appeal of having flexibility, but I'm just banking on the fact that there's a wide net for me to cast.
Yeah, fair enough. Is it worth diving in deeper into these picks, or are we happy to move on to the ones that are less owned? A lot of these guys are well owned for a reason. I mean, Sean Lane's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't he? Like, we pick him because that connection with Dylan Brown and the season he had in 2022, don't we?
Yeah, I think us sitting here doing 10 minutes on Sean Lane isn't going to move the needle too much. He's owned by 40% of teams. I expect that to rise to, say, 43, 44 by the time the game opens. I guess the only one, the one that I want to touch on is Kickow, 468K, owned by 15% of teams. There is the debate of the injury. So pre-injury, he had a 32, 36, 68, 34. Now, the 68 was his top score against the Tigers. We suck. The low score was 34 against the Warriors in New Zealand. He then, got injured, missed a massive portion of the year, came back and had a 57 in 62 minutes, a 33 in 73 minutes, a 52 and 75, a 28 and 58, and a 73 and 80 to end the season. Now, I'm happy to discredit the 2 games where he played less than 70 minutes. Take those out, he still averaged exactly 46. So, I guess we could look at these first 4 as an indicator with 32, 36, 68, 34. That's just another 45 average. Like, that's what it is. I'm not seeing a huge amount of value in Kickow based on what we know about the Bulldogs. Like, if they come out and brain it in the first 2 weeks, then sure, whatever. But nothing from this Bulldog side suggests to me that Kickow is going to be this even 55-point scorer, which is 10 points of value, when all these other guys are having, 15, 20, 25 points upside. So I'm not really keen on Kickow, and that 15% seemed high, and it feels like a casual pick that, hey, he's a name, and he's big.
And when we look at the draw to start the season for the Bulldogs, they've got the Eels away in game 1, they've got the Sharks away game 2, then they've got the Titans, Souths, Roosters, Storm, Knights into the bye. So those 4 games that they play into the bye, and even the game against the Sharks in round 2, it's not exactly screaming great draw, is it? So, like, what's the appeal with Kickow?
I'm not sure I believe in Matt Burton enough for Kickow. That honestly, it comes down to Matt Burton more so than it comes out to Kickow. Like, if I was adding Kickow in my team for 468K, I would have Matt Burton at 586K instead of a Dillbags or someone like that. Maybe even paying up from a Jaden Campbell. I know I'm having a lot of a chat about my team in the halves in a second row forward podcast, but if I believe that much that I would pay that for Kickow, well, then Burton's going to have an absolute rip snorter as well. So keep that in mind, that if you think Kickow's going to have this massive season, it's going to be because of Matt Burton, and you need to have both. So,
yep.
I also don't think Kickow's the kind of guy that you start the season with either. Like, he's a guy that you pick up in round 16 when he's 450K. Like, I don't think he's going to skyrocket in price. And if he does, he maybe averages like 52, 53. So you're paying up, an extra 60K. I don't think he's a guy that you start the season with. I think he's a guy that you pick up as a 6th to our F and you play him based off matchups. When your squad goes from, most people probably have 17 good options, maybe 18 good options. When your squad goes from that to, say, 21 in like round 16, 17, like when you've got a little bit more depth and you can play based off matchups, that's what Kickow is to me. It's not like the Bulldogs have this like extraordinary draw to start the season either that we can just pay up for him. If he was a Sua Wong price, if he was a 400K, we may be having a different conversation, but it's just that extra 70K. It's that extra 7 points that he has to score to have at least 10 points for me. So I'm pretty keen to fade Kickow. I'd rather pay an extra 60K and get Adam Elliott from Newcastle, as we'll touch on as well. But that's just, I think out of that top 10, that's the only one that I really wanted to touch on. Viliama Fafita and Jed Cartwright, I don't want to give too much airtime to. Talis Duncan, obviously it's a no-brainer if he starts. If he doesn't start, you've got Kai Pierce-Paul, you've got Smithies, you've got RFM. There's 3 other guys there that potentially will get a spot too. So they seem like structure picks to me. Do we want to chat Curran? Because he has a he has an average of like 65 when playing over 65 minutes, albeit a lot of that was on the edge. But he does like to get through some work. He has some really good attacking upside, loves an offload. We love these reckless players in Supercoach, Braino. Like, we love these guys that play unstructured footy and get their arm free and throw an offload here or there. People are worried about the minutes with Curran. I'm not, because I'm so high on Max King. Because therefore I have to be high on Curran. Like, it's Curran and Max King are really the only two good recognised middles. Yeah, you got your Liam Knights, but Kurt Mann isn't a guy that's going to take 15 hit-ups a game. Sam Hughes is still young. Chris Patolo is struggling with injuries. You've got guys like Kurt Morin, who played somewhat last year. Harrison Edwards played a little bit last year too, but Curran's been brought in for a reason, to add that extra oomph in the middle. And I really like him. I think he's probably the most expendable out of my list of edges, just because I think a lot of the edges I'm picking are playing 80. But if we get 60 minutes of Curran at like just under 1 ppm, like, that's still great value.
Oh, 100%. I think the fact that he can rotate through, obviously he's going to probably start at lock to start the season, I'd say. And the fact that he can also play on an edge just gives him potentially an extra 5 to 10 minutes on the field that a lot of these other pure middles just won't have the opportunity to do. We don't know how Kickout's going conditioning-wise. We know Preston can play 80 minutes, and that's not really a question, but maybe Kickout is eased into the season potentially. He had a lot of time off last year. So for me, Curran is one of the guys I haven't taken out of my team the whole preseason. I don't know about you, Matty, but it just seems like a bit of an easy pick. A guy at lock that can offload well. He's got good attacking upside, like Josh said, finds a try line, can play on an edge as well as a middle. The Bulldogs would be silly not to use him for 60 plus.
If he has a bad year, he still makes you 60 grand. So yes, Josh Curran is currently in my team. But yeah, I think if he has a bad year with the Bulldogs, he's still a 500k player. Like, he sort of went to the bench and everything in the Warriors outfit that they probably didn't need him. Like, they had Tohu. It was probably Tohu insurance, if anything, and Tohu had a great year. And we've got this 400k, I'm going to say borderline gun in Josh Curran, and I think that he should. Honestly, I'm more confident in Curran than Lane.
Do you think the Warriors last year was surprised in the, I wouldn't say resurgence, but in the uptick for Jackson Ford? Because everyone was kind of looking at Jackson Ford going, oh, this guy, like, yeah, he did okay at the Dragons a year before, but like, he's not going to play 80 on an edge. He's just going to come on. He's going to be a bench guy. Josh Curran's going to be that guy for the Warriors. Do you feel like maybe just Jackson Ford just kind of grabbing it by the balls last year ended up with Curran on the bench, Josh? Is that the way that it played out?
Yeah, and Murata Niokora. I think Murata Niokora was really good for them too. Josh Curran, just found him probably just a product of versatility as well. But a couple of things on Curran. Kickout was no 80-minute edge. Like, he's not some big motor middle. Like, Curran can fill in, and it may be only 5 minutes, but 5 minutes, even at 0.7 ppm, is an extra 3 points. And I know we're not talking huge motors here, but if he's on 60 and gets an extra, 5 minutes on the edge, that's great. I mean, Kickout, average minutes of 72, 67, 61, 76, 74. Like, he's not on there for the entire field. And if we can get even a few more minutes out of Curran, it's what we'll talk about with Murray too. Like, it's not huge, but it's enough to really move the needle. Since 2021, when Curran had his breakout season, he's played 30 games over 60 minutes for an average of 65.3. So that's a pretty good sample. 30 games is more than a season's worth of sample, averaging 65.3. The score breakdowns in those 30 games: one score between 1 and 30, no scores between 31 and 40, 6 scores between 41 and 50, 8 scores between 51 and 60, 7 scores between 61 and 70, 4 scores between 71 and 80, 1 score above 80, 1 score above 90, and 2 scores above 100. So he has a pretty good floor. We saw there one game under 30, but a lot of his floor is between 41 and 50, and we're paying 41 for him. So if we're buying him at the low, like we talk about Supercoach plays in terms of stock, like we're pretty much buying Curran at the low. It can only go up.
Yeah, I think that just makes it easier. We'd be having a very different conversation if Curran was 575k. It'd probably be a pass. But the fact he's 420 is just fucking ridiculous. So you just got to jump on. Quick chat on Brendan Piakura before we move on. Matty, you're probably the right guy to talk to about this. And obviously, with the Kurt Capewell news going over to the Warriors, that opens up an edge spot. And Piakura is the obvious reciprocate of that. Is he the guy we all want him to be, though?
Piakura signed his contract, and 3 days later, Kurt Capel was touring the Warriors facility. That's what the signing of Brendan Piakura was. He's been touted fantastic. It feels like he's been in, at least in the conversation of Supercoach teams for the last 3 years, because of how good everybody thinks he's going to be. Is he that good? We don't really know. Is he going to be that good in a season? But he's going to get the opportunity this year. And at 420K, in like when we're talking about adding players on struggling teams, like you want to add 420K players from the Bulldogs. Well, the Bulldogs suck. Piakura is going to get fantastic ball this year. The Broncos made the finals, and like we're in this perfect storm with the Broncos where there was a few changes and we've got some young guns coming through that we could add in our teams that are already going to get fantastic ball, that are already playing in a winning culture. Like Piakura could score tries out there on that edge. Like Piakura could, I expect him to play 80 minutes, don't you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think he should. At least he's going to be playing 60.
Kate will average 75, and Ricky has averaged 75 as well. So I think he's playing it's north of 70. Yep.
Yeah, so Piakura at 420K in that Broncos team that seems to have the firepower. I think Piakura might already be better than Jordan Ricky. I might get crucified for that one. But I'm more confident in Piakura's ability than Jordan Ricky. And I like Jordan Ricky. Good bloke and all that. But yeah, no, Piakura could be a generational talent, and you get him at 420K. He could be 600K next year.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good pick. 26% owned is still kind of like, I feel like it's maybe under owned a little bit, Josh.
I may be in the opposite camp here. I think the hype is a little bit over the top. Like I want it on the record that he's in my team. He hasn't left my team all preseason, but he's probably the first person that's expendable out of my side. And the only reason I say that is because Kurt Capewell averaged 54 last year. Ricky averaged 49. Like they're not a huge edge team. Like they have a lot of strike out wide that they'll use. They love to go Reynolds Walsh at the back, which is fair when you've got a guy like Walsh, you've got Staggs, you've got Cobbo, you've got Mariner, you've got Arthurs. Like there is a lot of strike in this team. He had eight starts last year. He had 4 starts last year for an average of 60, priced at 41. But those scores were made up of a 48, a 36, an 87, a 50, and a 77. So has a good ceiling, has a pretty F floor. I'm not saying that he's a bad pick. He's in my side. I want that on the record. I think out of this crop of like elite middle price guys, like I'm taking it Kick Out. I'm not keen on Kick Out at all. But if you put like Thermore, any of the Roosters guys, Curran, Blore, Lane, like I've probably got Piakura at the bottom of that pile. And that's just due to the age. That's just due to the team structure and how they're made up and work rate. Like I want to see the work rate from him. And it's hard with these Vegas guys because a lot of them play their trial a day or two before they leave for Vegas. So we're not going to see a whole lot of preseason footage of them. So I'm not saying that he's going to come out and be a bust, but I wouldn't be surprised if he averaged 46 after 6 weeks and he's sort of just plodding along.
I'm more confident in Piakura than some of these Roosters guys because there's just so many mouths to feed.
Huge minutes caveat. If you said to me, if I said to you, hey, I've time traveled and Su'a Wong's playing 75 minutes and you've got to have him or Piakura.
Yeah, 100%. But like, it's not going to happen. Like, if you said to me, Su'a Wong was playing for the Broncos. Like, if you said Su'a Wong was playing exactly that same spot for the Broncos, it'd be Su'a Wong as well. I think that they're both that similar sort of fantastic young talents. Like, if Crichton was playing that spot for the Broncos, you'd have Crichton as well. Like,
it's just
I
gross,
just think there's too many mouths to feed at the Roosters.
I just think in years gone by when we keep saying, oh, he's such a talent, we're paying 280K for this talent. We're paying 330K for this talent. We're now paying, north of 400K for a guy that's only had a handful of starts. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I've got Sean Bourne on my team, so I can't sit here and say, it's a bad play. It's just, it's always not fun. You'd much rather pay the money for a proven guy who has, like a Josh Curran, who has at least 30 games of good results, than a guy like a guy like Pierre Cora that has played, as many games as I've had hot dinners. So it's just like, it's a bit gross. I wouldn't be surprised if you average 63. I wouldn't be surprised if you average 45. You're not going to lose money on your investment, but it's a weird one.
How many
It's
hot
tough.
dinners
I'm looking
have
at.
It's not many.
I'm looking at 10 games last year, so 10 hot dinners. In games that he played 80 minutes last year, he scored 48, 36, 87, and then he got 50 in the last round. So that's in 80-minute games. And then obviously in 50-plus minute games, he got a 15 and a 30 in the first 2 games he played last year. And then he got a 77 in 67 minutes, and that's it. So there's a lot of up and down. And when I look at the amount of base that he generates, it is 28 points in base per game, which is very low. So we're relying on them using him through an edge a lot, I think. I can get where Josh is coming from. I think it's a bit too much of a slam dunk pick. Just to start, let's just see how we go. And like you said at the start of the episode, Matty, you can just kind of pivot and move off him if it doesn't work out. But in saying that, I wouldn't actually mind, before we move on to the 3 premium guys we'd like to talk about, is to have a bit of a chat about Beau Fermor. Because for me, it's really dependent on which side of the field he's playing. Josh, like, if he's on the left, it's a fucking no-brainer pick. But if he's on the right, the question marks start to pick up, like he's outside Tanner Boyd as opposed to Kieran Foran. Does that change things for you at all?
He doesn't have that Kubrick Park connection, does he? Like he doesn't
exactly.
have the Queensland Schoolboys connection.
Yeah, but
Does that change things?
Plays bridge. Yeah, he plays bridge with Tanner Boyd, I heard, and that's actually a really good thing. So
it's it's an interesting one with Beau Fermor. I'm just trying to squint as hard as I can and pull up his little profile from 2022. But he obviously excelled on the left, and Fafita excelled on the left when he stepped in last year. He's a guy that does have upside. He does have attacking upside, does have the bye in round 2, I want to say, which is not ideal. You're going to have to rely on one of your 18th, 19th options on your bench. He was a gun. It's hard to come off an ACL, but he does have pretty much the full year for it. There's a lot of factors where I'm just a little bit unsure. New coach, unknown role, early bye, injury history, and then the fact that he's probably 40K too much for what I want to spend. Like, I'd love him to be 410, 420. But, being what he is at, he's only getting a 20% discount on what he scored in 2022. It's an interesting one. Like, I want to hear your boys' thoughts, because for me, the jury's still out on Fermor. I'm generally a guy that has my stake firmly in the ground. I've got an opinion either way. But Fermor's one of these guys where he could just get no ball and just put up 45.
I'm worried. If I see him on the right side of the field and Fafita is on the left, which naturally I actually think that's the way it's going to go. You can't move Fafita from the year that he had last year. You can't move sides. He had a good connection with Foran. It doesn't make sense to throw him over the other side of the field. So if I see him and it's confirmed that Fermor's on the right side of the field, I might fade. What about you, Matty?
Also, sorry, Matty, just quickly. Also, Fafita takes up so much of the attention on the opposition that AKP, he just gets free roam on the wing. And like, no disrespect to Fermor, but you can just I just smashed a glass. You can just mark AKP out of the side. You can just keep everyone standard, and Fermor is just a meat and potatoes player.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. First things first, you can't smash a tin. So I'm going fantastic in this one.
Is there a good time for a standard squeeze plug now?
I've definitely spelt drinks on me live in the pod. But yeah, again, like it depends what side that he plays. And actually taking Josh's advice a bit earlier on, that if you're going to take a mid-range guy, take the most expensive one so that you've planned ahead. And if I needed to pivot Fermor due to the trials, him playing on the right, him not getting a lot of ball, him not looking fantastic, then hey, I'll just pivot Fermor onto someone. But currently he's my most expensive player. It was a genuine gun, but that was in a team that won 20% of their games in 2022. He scored 11 tries that year. He was fantastic. But like he's coming back into the side in a, dare I say, a good Titans side now. And he's definitely not going to be the focal point that he was. I'm not saying a great Titans side, but it's a good team now.
Yeah.
Firma just quietly in 2022 finished with a season of 74, 61, 93, 105, 84, 107. He went at a pretty good clip to finish the season.
And I mean, that's without foreign.
He's 400K.
So, yeah. It's a tough one, isn't it? Coming back from ACL as well, we've got to take that into consideration as well. You know, he's coming back from a season-ending injury, but the good thing is he's had a full preseason. So that it's kind of an argument for and against.
We just sort of said his worst-case scenario is 45. So say he plateaus out with 45. Honestly, I could bench him for a couple weeks. Maybe he jags a try and scores a 60 and goes up in price for a bit, and then I own him, and he could be a season-long keeper for you. Really.
The question is, though, how many of these, if he's shit, I'll just trade him out, guys, do you want? Like we've already said, Pierre Cora could definitely be that. We could say Firma could just be very meat and potatoes if, you know, he's on the right. Like, apart from Lane and Curran, like, a lot of them have those question marks. Otherwise, they'd be 80% owned. Like, how many of these guys that we go, oh, well, if they suck, I'll just move them on? Like, how many of those do we want to carry? Because I probably don't want to carry more than 2.
Yeah. Same.
I think you could hold, like we just said, worst case scenario, Firma holds his price. If you've got to hold him for 6 weeks extra until you have a luxury trade, you're still not losing money.
But you're losing points. You know, we've got to also keep into consideration you don't want to be fucking 40K after 6 weeks just because you picked 3 of the wrong blokes at 2RF.
But do you even need to play a 400K player? That's all I'm saying. Like if
you're going to have to play 3 of them.
Yeah, if Sean Bloor's on fire, Sean Lane's being Sean Lane, and Piakura or Curran is good, you can just bench Firma for 5 weeks if he's averaging 45. That's all I'm saying. He's not costing you anything.
And the question becomes, can you get it right every week? You know, like I'm sure we're going to play the wrong guy at 2RF and we're going to bench the wrong guy. And, you know, like it's, there's so many arguments for and against. And we just literally talked through the 10 most owned guys, or not even, probably 5 of them. And there's so much contention, even between us as a group, on what we agree on.
Wong. Like, we're not going to have an in-depth chat on Sil Wong, but like he's another one. It's just like, fuck, there's about 7 people. And we've said this every episode. Like the Roosters guys is about 400 people to get minutes for. He's another one that could just play 45 minutes, 50 minutes. And you're like, well, fuck. Then what do I do? Like, it's just, there's a lot of these guys who on the surface are like, oh, fuck, they're 420K. They could average 65. They could also average 42 and just be what they're priced at. So it's very contentious. And that's why
it is.
The premiums, I guess, are the best ones to go for. And we'll touch on those in due course.
Yeah, we'll do that very soon. Before we do, Inside Unlimited, it's finally here. It's something we've been working on in the background for a very long time, and you get access to all of our thoughts, exclusive Q&As all throughout the season, draft rankings, and tons more. And look, if that's not enough for you, and you just want to support the team here and you want to support the podcast, it's only $25 a year. It's like less than $1 a fortnight. Mick Dell, the big horse, he described it as an upsized Zinger box, and that's probably the best comparison I can give you because we're all for KFC here at Insight. I saw Matty's eyebrows raise when he heard the word Zinger box. So,
I tell you what, Uber Eats might be dropping that bad boy off later tonight.
But for $25, you get access to all 3 of us, including all the experts on the other shows as well: AFL, NBL, BBL when it rolls around. It's a full year commitment. I know that certain newspapers have subscriptions that cost the same amount. Like we have all the info as well that gets posted in there, so you're not having to double dip with multiple subscriptions. Trades advice, rate my teams. The consensus team, which ranked very, very well last season. Like I said, access to all 3 of us pretty much whenever you need. It just helps keeps the lights on. And for $25 a week, that's what, 50 cents a week?
For $25 a week, I could be your coach.
Sorry, $25 a year, which is like 50 cents a week.
$25 a week if you want me.
I asked him to write super above his hat, and he said he wouldn't do it because he liked the blue.
And I just said, put me in, coach.
Let's talk primos, because I mean, we've talked Titans a fuckload, and I guess this kind of flows into the next two guys because these two are the top two primos. One not so well owned, but another one very well owned at 18.5. So, but let's talk the guy less owned first, and David Fifita, because he was the guy last year, Josh, that you go, I don't give a fuck how much he costs. I will buy this guy and I'll start at the season, but it's a different conversation that we're having this year.
Yeah, Fifita, well, priced at 66 last year. So you were buying him at like 660K. Like,
Yep.
fuck, man. Imagine that this year. Didn't quite hit the tops of his 2021 season, but it's very hard to do that during PVL ball. But still averaged just a comfortable 82 at 2RF, playing 75 minutes a game, injury-free, played 22 games. I played pretty much the entire season, which was unreal. Scored nearly 1,800 points. A coefficient variant rating of 31%, which for Fifita, that's fucking unreal. Like, that is elite numbers for him. Has a ceiling that no one else can touch. I remember early in the season, I want to say it was like round 9. From like round 9 to just before the bye, he went like 109, 115, 106, 110. And I remember people didn't jump on because of Origin. But I took the plunge. I think I bought him just after his first bye, which was like round 5. And yeah, reaped the rewards. Like, he was unreal. Fifita, he was just, everything went right for him. On the left there, linking up with Foreign, AKP had a great season because of it. The conversation has shifted drastically this year just because of the pool of players that we have for Fifita.
We'd be lying if it wasn't the injury as well, right? Like the torn pec, the questionable preseason. It's Fifita though. Like, if there's one guy that you go, I don't give a fuck about the injury, it's Fifita. Like, the guy's just a fucking beast, Matty. Like, he is probably, or actually no, not even probably, he is easily the best 2RF in the game in Supercoach. So the question becomes, with all these mid-range guys, do we pay up the 832K, which is a lot, and sacrifice a guy like Nathan Cleary or a Harry Grant or an expensive CTW or a second fullback gun to get in David Fifita?
Like, you know me, I'm a bit of a punter, which is why I've had legit had a punt on these mid-range guys at this stage. But I made one mistake last year, and that was moving David Fifita out of my team for like 4 weeks over Origin, because I was like, well, he's like, I started the year with him, held on to him, traded him out thinking, hey, he's only playing 2 of the next 5 weeks, and like, he got something stupid like 121 of those games. Like, I should have just sat him on my bench. It was hard to get him back in due to the price rises and everything. But I'd be really happy to have Fifita in my team. But it's just the addition of Firma, the injury, the fact that he's 830K and not 660K like he was at the start of last year. It just makes it harder, and I think I can do more with the extra 400K from a Firma to Fifita and have a punt. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I spend 4 weeks trading out guys to get Fifita at some stage during the year.
That's the thing.
But
it's so fucking hard. Like I've spoken about all preseason how terrified I'd be not owning Turbo. I'd be fucking more petrified not owning Fifita, because he had that weird game last year where he played like 30 minutes against South. That was like after he backed up from Origin and everyone was off him. But I'm happy to remove that game from memory. So if we take out that game, this is 6 scores in a row: 114, 100, 111, 116, 121, 107. 6 weeks in a row. Like, that was just him peak middle season, unreal.
Captain.
Fifita, yeah, he was. And then if you had him, you rolled into Gutho when Brown was out, who got like 400s in a row. Like, it was just great times over Origin. The thing with Fifita is we always say, oh, how inconsistent he is, how up and down he is, how volatile he is. He had 2 scores under 50 all year, and they were a 43 and a 47. Like, there was no bad games for him. Yes, there was the one game against South where he played 33 minutes, but whatever. Apart from that, man, like, he was lethal. Like, 21... Sorry, yeah, taking out that shit game, 21 games played, 19 games over 50. And they're numbers that we've never seen from him before in terms of historic consistency.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's the big point. We're all holding on to what we know of David Fifita pre-2022. where one week you come out and get 150, the next week you get your 37. And I think maybe that it was a contract year for half of the year last year. So that, do you buy into that or not? I don't personally, but Des Hasler, is that now a question mark as well? Because he's going to come over and probably shake things up over there at the Titans. Is Fafita going to be better for Des being there? I'd probably argue he will be. So the question now becomes, do you spend up? And look, at the moment, he's not in my team just purely because it doesn't make sense to spend that much money when we're shaping our starting team. I would prioritise Nico Hines and Nathan Cleary in the same team than getting Fafita. I think that's probably the decision that I need to make. Do I want the best two halfbacks in the game and probably the two highest scorers in the game, or do I want to take a punt on Fafita in a position where he's a fucking pod right now? He's sub 10% owned, Josh.
Yeah. The problem with Fafita is there is upside, but there's not 180 points against the Dragons, fresh off a hamstring injury. 225 points versus the Titans in Magic Round 2021. Like, he goes big, but not captain big. In drafts, I think let's have a draft discussion. Is he your first top 10?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I'm not even thinking twice.
If you have pick 6, pick 7, and you have to build your team around someone, do you look at Fafita and go, "You're my guy," or do you take and this is
if you don't play captain?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is based off non-captains leagues, which I don't play.
Yeah,
but like you look at him and just go, "Would I rather you or like SJ?" I'd probably rather Fafita.
Oh yeah.
Oh. That's not even a question. Yep, 100%. He is a top 6 pick, guaranteed. I mean, you got Nico Hines going 1, Nathan Cleary going 2, or other way around. Whatever your preference is, it doesn't really matter. Those two are 1 and 2.
Walsh, Ponga, Turbo, maybe Drinkwater, and then you're like
Nico Cleary.
Nico Cleary 1 and 2, and then your rotation of 4 fullbacks. And if I don't mind being at pick 7, 8, 9 this year because you've got Trell, you've got Fafita.
Yeah, I was just about to say Trell.
Like you've got all these guys. You're like, fuck, I could go either way. Whereas in years gone by, you don't get pick 1, or if you're at the back end of the hook, you're like, fuck, this is grim. But that middle period of the first round is actually a decently good value this year, I think. But going back to Classic, he's a guy that if you paid for Insight Unlimited, $25 a year, 50 cents a week, and you sent us your team and it had Fafita in it, I can't sit there and go, "Oh, you got to remove Fafita." Like if you find the cash for him, fucking load it. I'm all in if I can get the cash for him. Like if for whatever fucking reason Cleary or Hines was out for like 8 weeks, mate, he's in.
Oh, he's the first player I try and get in my team if there was a primo spot in my team. Yeah. It's as simple as that. The problem is we're prioritizing the guys with the high upside, and that's fine. You're allowed to do that.
What we're doing is fucking boring. Don't get me wrong. We're doing what everyone else is doing, is picking all the 400k guys. That's shit. If you want to have some fun, fuck me. Like if my rank wasn't so attached to my status as like a SC creator, I'd fucking 100% have Fafita. 100%.
So you're saying the community team should have Fafita in it because we're just voted for 2RF?
All right. Well, let's get the Insight team happening, and we'll push this Fafita agenda.
I'm all for it, boys. Let's talk Tino. Because he's the second, same draw, very nice draw, mind you. They've got the Dragons into the bye, but then they've got the Dogs and the Dolphins, the Cowboys and the Raiders, like the first 6 rounds. So the Titans draw is very juicy. Tino's 791k. He averaged 77.5 last year. I mean, look, the bye or the draw, for the Origin guys from the Titans isn't ideal because they missed 13, they missed 16, they missed 17, and they missed 19. So you may as well trade these guys out before Origin. Except we did that last year, Matty, for David Fafita, and didn't fucking work at all. So maybe save him. But I mean, the one thing for me, I looked at Tino's stats before we hopped on here. He had 57 in base. That is fucking huge. In terms of base stats, that is the largest base stat number from last season that I've seen so far since looking through these stats.
He also only played 62 minutes a game and averaged nearly fucking 80 points. Like
1.2 wild scores.
We talk about him being an Origin sort of iffy. I mean, I'll read you that middle period of the year from sort of round 12 to round 20. 108, 103, 93, 95, 58. Then missed a fair chunk of games with some injury. But still, like over Origin, he was great. He is a guy that has we're not talking. I know he's in the 2RF podcast, but we're not talking about him from a 2RF standpoint.
Yeah, no.
He has more upside than Haas. He has more upside than Haas.
Oh, big time.
He's probably a better pick than Haas as well because of the duel. It's just everyone's going Haas for some reason. If I had the money, I'd rather Tino. It's just that early buy puts me off. But what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4 games over 100? Like Haas isn't doing that.
Not a chance. So Haas scored 1 try and 3 line breaks last year all year. Tino scored 6 tries last year alone. I didn't even look at the line breaks. He had 74% of his games last year above 60. Like, you know, we're talking coefficient of variance as well. We're talking consistency. If you're scoring over 60 that often in 3/4 of your games, you've got to be a serious consideration. And, you know, yeah, the cons might be he's had his biggest year last year in history. You know, he's had his biggest Supercoach year. 11-point increase on his best year in Supercoach, Matty. He's priced at his peak, though. Now, let me ask you this. We talked about this a couple of episodes ago around a good draw could actually hurt forwards. So with the Titans, if they do really well to start the year and they've got some really nice matchups, does Tino spend too much time standing under the goalposts at either end? Does that drop his base?
Oh, look, I don't think it affects it too much. I think Tino's priced at what he'll get. I also think Payne Haas is priced at what he'll get. And I've classically never really added Broncos, but I just felt like that sort of burnt me last year. I don't think you ever move Tino to second row forward when he's got the front row forward duel. I think he's just an 800k player that you're paying 800k for with an early buy, and that scares me.
That's the thing. You talk about Tino having an 11-point increase. So did Haas. Haas averaged 63 2 years ago, and then 74 last year. If there wasn't this early buy, I'm paying the extra 40k.
Oh,
like if Haas had if Tino had a clean run through until Origin like the Cowboys do, like I'm paying the extra 40k and just getting Tino because the duel is so handy. The fact that he plays, you know, he has a great PPM similar to Haas, but plays probably slightly more minutes, has a more attacking upside. He is more relied upon in his team for attack than say a Haas is. Like another one of these guys. Like if you had Haas in your team over Fafita, I'm not going to say no. Like if you've got cover, if you set your team up that you have 3 playable front row forwards, or you've set your team up where you have a Keenan Palisade, or not because he plays the Titans. If you have like Liam Knight as your front row forward 3, or Sam Hughes shows he's playing 40 minutes off the bench and can score 40 points, go all in on Tino. And I'd prefer him over Haas.
Yeah. I mean, the 40 points just means, do you go for an Angus Crichton versus a Beau Fermor? There's 40k. You know, that's the question. So there's so much room to move in 2RF. We'll move off Tino because, you know, yeah, he's 18.5%, but it's front row forward conversation. So, boys, we've got 3 guys that are priced in between Tino and Cam Murray, and that's Jermaine Hopgood, Britton Nickera, Isaiah Yeo. So is there much to say on these 3 guys? Is there any conversation that we're having around why we should be picking any of these 3 guys?
I'm not keen on Hopgood at all. Like, just not. Talk about a cat with 9 lives. Like last year, that bloke fell on his feet every time. He reeked of Nico during 2021. Pat was out for 3 weeks. Nico played there. After that 3 weeks happened, Munster was out for 4 weeks. And then Munster was out for 4 weeks, and then Pat was out. And Nico always found his feet at the Storm. Last year, Hopgood, yes, it was unreal. But, you know, everyone seemed to get injured the minute that the replacement was back. Well, not the replacement, but the person that was going to take minutes out. Like, I remember it really hit home for me was when Matto got the flu. Because he was going to come back in, and I was like, Matto got the flu, and then someone else got fucking injured. And then, yeah, Hopgood just carried through. Like, I can't base my analysis off people getting injuries that are favorable for players. And I think he's priced at value. I think he's going to be in Origin conversations this year. I think the Eagles have a sneakily good forward pack. Paulo, RCG, Makahisi, Makatoa. There's a couple others.
Didn't RCG miss half the season too? Like, everything went. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, yeah, that's a no. And he's low owned, so that's fine. We can probably move through him. Nickera, Yo, same kind of thing. I mean, Nickera with the nice draw, though, Josh. Like, is there any love for him there?
That's my thinking. I mean, Warriors away from home is ideal, but Broncos, Tigers, Raiders, and then a bye in round 5. Like, pretty good 5-week play. And if Nico goes off, Nico is going to go off, and you can have that really juicy stack. So I don't hate the Nico shout. Like, he's not someone that I can find the money for. And when people are listening to this and we say, "Oh, look, we don't have them," it's not because we don't like them. Like, if you gave me extra 300k, I'd have Nico on my side.
Nico.
He has a great base. There are certain Supercoach podcasts out there that say Nico has a shit base. Nico has the same base as Fafita, who we've just said it was overly ultra consistent, which is like upwards of 50. And Nico has a great attacking upside. He is probably the best line runner in the comp. Like, when Nico hits him short, good luck stopping him. Great early draw. Find the cash for Nico. It's a great stack to have, but you've got to have Nico. I don't think you can have either or, because if Nico goes off, you want to benefit from Nico as well.
Yeah, fair short.
And Yo is just sure
Meat and potatoes, isn't he? Yeah.
like having Carrigan.
Wait.
Yeah. Carrigan was awesome last year, and Yo was great last year as well. And that's, what you're going to get from them, but like, there's just no upside in them at all. So, if you want your 60 to 70, great.
Draft pick.
That's where it ends.
Great second round draft pick.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the next guy, though, because Cam Murray, there's a little bit of interest and intrigue in Cam Murray, because there's been word out, Matty, that he's going to potentially shift to an edge throughout the year, which means more time on the field. Does that mean potentially more points? You'd kind of naturally assume that it does, right? 639k is unders, isn't it, for Cam Murray?
Yeah, I love Cam Murray. I was a bit more of I was real high in the preseason on Angus Crichton, and then, of course, all those issues come, and I pivoted to Cam Murray. He was a bit disappointing last year, but I think heading into this year, it can only be better. Had his injury concerns last year. Like, I don't think 600k is Cam Murray's floor, right, Josh?
Huge PPM drop off. Like, he played the most minutes of his career last year with 68 minutes a game, and people are sitting there saying, "Oh, Demetrio doesn't use him." Like, he played 68 minutes a game, but had a huge PPM drop off: 1.17, 1.01, 1.13, 1.09, and then 0.92 last year. So that was like nearly a 0.1 drop off. Had the lowest score of his career, because in years gone by, Mattrix, he's gone 69, 68, 70, 71, and then down to a 63 last year. And that really coincided with that PPM drop-off. If he is going to be playing, say, 65 minutes through the middle and then playing 5 or 10 minutes on the edge and getting close to 80, then he's going to be fucking unreal. Braino, we were just saying with Murray, like, he played the most minutes of his career last year, but had a massive PPM drop-off. But he can definitely get back to what he was, even like the year before last, 71 average.
Yeah, I think the difference, and I looked at this, shout out to NRL Supercoach Stats website. Those guys are doing an awesome job over there. I feel like he's priced at his floor. He had a 50 base, right? But we look at his base. He had a 51 base last year and a 50 base the year before that. So his base is 50 to 51 the last 3 years straight. The only difference in his scoring last year was his score, create, and evade. Only 16 points last year versus 23 and 20 the 2 years before that. So we're just missing out on that attacking upside that we know that Cam Murray's capable of.
Do you think that coincides with Cook's downfall?
Yeah, potentially. That quick ruck speed, the darting out of dummy half, and, Cam Murray loves to follow up through the middle. So, yeah, potentially it could be. And if Damien Cook's role is different, if they're asking him to do a little bit different and maybe just get the ball to the halves a little bit more often, then maybe he does hurt him. But we know that Cam Murray's play the ball speed has always been his advantage, right? That quick play the ball speed, that quick ball up through the middle. That's where Cam Murray scores his points.
That's my concern. It's probably not, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but if you look at Campbell Graham's averages and look at Cam Murray's averages, like, is it a case of them getting more strike in the outside backs? And does it worry you that Whiten's now there? So you've got Munro and AJ, like two very quick, speedy wingers, and then you've got Graham and Whiten that are both really strike centers. Do you worry that Demetrio is going to pivot more to being like, well, let's just get through the first three tackles and let's get the ball out wide to these guys? Do you think that this happens with Cam Murray, or do you think the fact that you're paying for a 63-point average and it can't get any worse? It's not like we're paying for a 42 average from Beau Fermor, that if he just scores 42, it's a bit of a plotting score. If you pay for 63 for Cam Murray, he scores 63, you're not looking at your app on Monday morning going, oh, well, fuck, he's got to go. Like, 63 is fine, isn't it?
Yeah, 63 is fine, but also, wouldn't you rather spend that 200K elsewhere and just get one of these 450K guys?
Yeah.
Like, we're not paying for Cam Murray to get 63. We're paying for Cam Murray to get 71. And if he doesn't...
It's much easier to stomach, though. It's what I'm saying is it's much easier for you to look down and go, okay, we got a slight green arrow. Cam Murray scored 65. That's all right. Then for you going, fuck, we lost rank by 20 points. Shit, what happened? Oh, Bo Firma only got 42. That's the 4th week in a row. That's what I'm saying. In a perfect world, we spend the money elsewhere and we get more points. But if you're paying for Cam Murray to get 71 and he gets a 64, is it really the end of the world? Like people are paying for Bo Firma to get back to what his best was, which was a 60. And that's more hard to stomach when he's pumping out 45s. I know it's the same value in terms, and this is the hard thing with like points versus value. It's like you're paying for the same value. You're paying for their floor and you're getting their floor. But if the floor is still 20 points better, that's much easier to stomach and not rage trade.
Thoughts, Matty?
I've got 2 things. I heard someone say it's because Cam Murray's getting old. It's because he's 26 years old.
He's like 26.
Getting old. Thanks, Twitter. They're like, oh, the drop off was just Cam Murray's age. I was like, he was 26. He was a 33-year-old.
It's all downhill for us, boys.
I'm at peak performance. And Braino, was that a piss or a beer break?
Piss. I've got my beer sitting here. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
The seal's been broken.
Yeah,
no, that's broken before the show started. Good question, though. Very good question.
Yeah.
I saw you disappear during one of the ad breaks, so
it was both.
Okay.
It was both.
Yeah, good.
Cam Murray dropped to 460K last year.
Oh man,
how good.
We were. Every single content creator was sitting there looking at Cam Murray, going, "Do we just get him for the sake of it's Cam Murray at 400K?"
Yeah. It's worth some cause light. It's worth noting he also had a 71 3-round average and a 71 3-round average and a 73 5-round average at the end of the year. So really came back into his own. As I said, bottomed out at 467K, finished the year at 630K, gained 200K in a matter of 6 weeks. He got back to what he was his best. He got back to his 2022 best at 71 average for the run home. So, and that wasn't because of any huge scores. It wasn't like a massive outlier. It was a 76, 76, 72, 48, 74. 92 at the end of the season.
Nice little move for anybody who jumped on him at the end. That's for sure. But yeah, look, the question becomes, do you pay up for him this year with that many 400K guys? And it's the same fucking question we're going to ask all night is, do you pay up when you can get the guys at value? So that's, I guess, the message.
Well, I guess we spoke about Cam Murray and him having a great back end of the season. I guess that could lead into a couple of Newcastle Knights options, boys. And the first one I want to talk on is obviously my love interest in Adam Elliott. Now, we know how good he was for the Raiders, and we were all sitting here, every content creator was sitting here in the preseason saying, well, fuck me, Adam Elliott, he's going to be a ripper for the Knights. We're getting him at a good price because Ricky didn't use him at the start of the season. Suffered some injuries in the preseason and really struggled to find his own last year. But when he did get his chance to shine, he had a 5-round average of 63 to finish the season. He's currently priced at 517K, so about a 50-point average. And we know how good he was. Even at the Bulldogs, he was a very, very solid Supercoach option at the Bulldogs. Obviously was unreal for the Raiders 2 years ago. Since 2022, Elliott's played 31 games over 50 minutes at 13. So we can take out the edge games where he had more attacking upside. And he still averaged 62 points in those 31 games in the middle. So there's 10 points of value. And that was in a poor Knight side. Sorry, that was in a poor Bulldog side and a poor Raiders side. Now finds himself at the Knights, who are a team on the up. Is Adam Elliott a case of we can't go there because of the other cheaper options that are 50K cheaper?
I tell you what, he's been in my team a number of times. I don't know about you, Matty, but I've seen Adam Elliott as my most expensive 2RF probably at least 3 different times in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I did for about 2 hours at one stage, and gee, it was a good 2 hours. But I was just walking down. There was this spring in my step. I was just hitting my 4th coffee at about 9:36 a.m. It was a really good day. But I think if I make some pivots, like TLT happens, and a couple of cheapies emerge, and I can move like a 300k guy down to a 238k guy that I think is going to have the same upside, and I find myself with a bit extra money, like going Firma or like a Blore or someone like that to Adam Elliott is like the ultimate luxury upgrade. And there's not the upside there, but there's the base and the fact that he's gonna we think he's gonna score 60, right?
I'd be surprised if he doesn't score 55, and that's a 5-point increase, really.
Take out. So we said he had a 5-round average of 63 to finish the season. He played one weird game in round 25 when he played 44 minutes and then he scored a 37. Take out that. He had a 4-round average of 69.25. And it wasn't anything extraordinary. It was a 66, a 75, a 70, and a 66. And that they were his Raiders numbers. They were the boost for Elliott days. Like, that was peak my content creation was boosting for Adam Elliott and copying so much shit for it. But take out the weird 44-minute game. Yeah, 69 average to finish the season, and you're paying 51 for him? Like, come on.
And I mean, that big year where he averaged 75 minutes per game.
No Kurt, man.
Yep. Yeah, there's no one to steal minutes from him. Who's going to steal minutes from him at lock?
I want Adam Elliott, boys.
Oh, Jesus.
And we don't even need to boost to get him, Josh.
I hope I can go hands to Joey Lussick, and then I can maybe go Firma to Adam Elliott.
I have the cash to go Pierre Cora and Adam Elliott live on pod.
Oh, is this another live trade? Second live trade of the year? I have enough cash as well to do Firmore up to Adam Elliott right now. I've got 142k in the bank.
That's the thing, though. Like, people are like, oh, he doesn't have any upside. Like, I don't fucking care. If I'm paying 51 points for a guy that could get me like 65, like, sweet. Like, if we're sitting there saying we're happy to pay 660k for Cam Murray to get 65. No, and that's the thing. And this was my mini rant last week. Like, everyone expects everyone to have 100-point upside. Everyone's going to score 120 on their days. And I'm not going to go down that rant again. But please, Adam Elliott, you know, when he's fit and firing, like we saw he was great at the Raiders. He was, you know, not great at the Bulldogs, but he was good. He was like a 55 to 58 point score at the Bulldogs. No Kurt Mann. You know, the Safidi brothers are not, you know, renowned for their durability and fitness, especially Jacob. The
and
edges
football.
are probably I don't see Kai Pearce-Paul playing 80 straight away. Like, no. Dylan Lucas is not really a recognized middle. Like, is Jack Hetherington still on the roster? I'd have to check.
He's still there. He's still there somehow.
I don't know. Like, I think Adam Elliott could be a guy where Adam O'Brien just says, all right, can you please give me 60 minutes?
If there's anybody on this roster, right, in this forward pack, that they would go, I need you to bang out, you know, some big minute games. They got the first man they're going to is Adam Elliott. It's just a no-brainer. Yeah, look, we're talking about a guy who won't give you many attacking points. He won't give you much attacking upside, but you can guarantee that you're going to get more often than not what you pay for, and probably more in Adam Elliott.
People have had Cameron McInnes in their side who's more expensive.
Yep. He is an 80k cheaper Cam McInnes. That's what he is. So before we talk about the second guy, which will be a shorter conversation, but it's worth having a conversation. We do also need to have a conversation about Josh's major sponsor, the Standard Squeeze. He probably does need a Standard Squeeze pack. We actually, it's on the way for you, Josh. It's coming very soon.
Watch this.
Far out.
It's not broken.
No, it's good.
Wall, you could rage trade after a Monday, throw it at the wall, and it'd still be sweet.
Yep. That's it. The Standard Squeeze guys, they're helping you drink responsibly. They're helping you drink conveniently. They measure the perfect pour and also can't be broken. You're not going to break any glasses. You can go to their website, thestandardsqueeze.com, use Insight15, 15% off. And if anybody wants to send Josh a new glass, we would appreciate that. Boys, Tyson Frizzell. Now, the word has been potentially he might be shifting sides. We know we've spoken about it nearly every episode so far in the preseason. Kalen Ponga loves going left. The left edge back rower benefits from Ponga and his preferences. Is 579k? Like, can we make an argument that Frizzell could be an option this year based on the fact that he starts at left edge, Matty?
I mean, you could, but I'm not buying into it. At 580k, it just turns him into a draft option for me. Like Adam Elliott, who we chatted about for so long, is just such a better prospect than Tyson Frizzell. Like, good player, like, ex-representative. Look, I'm just looking up his age, to be honest. At 32 years, I'm not buying into the 579K uptick that he's going to have.
Can we move on, Josh? Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, minutes have stayed the same. So basically, 2022 average 57, 2023 average 57, 2020, 2021 average 63 and 65 respectively. Had a good PPM uptick, but the minutes have been consistent. It's just the PPM going down. Even if he gets the left edge, like, how much more is he going to add? Like, I don't think it's going to add a heap. Like, maybe 5 points.
Yep.
Like, if you told me Tyson Frizzell averaged 62 playing on the left, I'd be like, cool. If you told me he averaged 57 again, I'd be like, cool. Like,
yeah,
I think this is just a draft pick that he goes 1 or 2 rounds higher in draft.
And we're having some good draft conversation. This is probably where you find your draft upside or your diamond in the rough, isn't it, 2RF, if you're playing draft. So we'll probably talk a bit more draft-specific stuff closer to the season when everyone's drafting.
We spoke about hooker, and if it's not JMK, Grant, or Cook, it's just 50 points. Front row forward, if it's not Haas, Tino, AFB, JDB, it's
Max King
55 to 60. Max King and Cotter, it's 50 to 55 points. 2RF is where you can take some more flyers because you've got guys that are underpriced, and unfortunately for draft players, their draft boards get fucked by classic players who just overhype players too much.
Yep.
So Frizzell
Josh Schuster got took in the 5th round last year in one of my draft leagues. Put that into perspective. I think it was Damien Carroll. Put that into perspective.
Classic.
Shout out to Damo.
Classic does win draft sometimes. Frizzell didn't finish the season too great last year. A 51 3-round average, 49 5-round average. So definitely did drop off last year. Showed some spurts, with an 82 and an 88 in rounds 20 and 21 against the Tigers and the Storm. But apart from that, it was pretty much what you expect from Tyson Frizzell. Did have an HIA after 14 minutes in round 1. So you can discount that, but that probably only bumps his average up to, say, 55.5. So he's not a guy that I'm keen on, even if the left-hand side does swap. I guess while we've driven to Newcastle, we can chat about a couple of other options. We've got Dylan Lucas, who is available at centre wing, and that's his big appeal. Like, he's not a guy that I'm picking at my 2RF because he doesn't have that upside like a Murray or an Elliott or even a Frizzell on his good day, and he doesn't... he's not cheap enough to be in the category of the 7 names that we've mentioned already. Centre wing is where his value lies, and we've already done a deep dive on him. Averaged 64 in the games that he started last year. Played 5 games, but started 4, and played 80 in all of those. The problem with Dylan Lucas is we were very keen on him, the 3 of us, with the news that Kai Pearce-Paul's toe was still bothering him, and he was going to be maybe 4 or 5 rounds away. Seems like he's going to Pearce-Paul will be playing trials, and therefore is a huge shout to play round 1.
Oh, I mean, it kind of puts a line through Dylan Lucas for me.
Kind of puts a line through both of them.
Well, not Kai Pearce-Paul, it doesn't.
Not at 340k, it doesn't.
Yeah, no, 502k Dylan Lucas. Yeah, the dual position was probably the attraction, wasn't it? It was like, can we get a starting edge back rower that also can play in the centre wing? That's the goal, isn't it, in Supercoach? If you can get some back rowers that can play in the centres with the consistency and the COV of scoring that they usually have, you can bank yourself 50 to 60 points in the centre wing. So, yeah, it's a no for me.
Yeah, I think with this Pearce-Paul news that he's back and fit and ready to go, then probably puts a line through Lucas. We can quickly touch on KPP. Not a whole amount of stats to go off. I guess for any Super League aficionado out there, he's played for England at such a young age. He's a big boy. There's some photos of him getting around in the gym. Loves a tackle break. I've already hitched my wagon on the KPP Rookie of the Season agenda, but he's not someone that we need to go too much in detail on. If we see him named to start round 1, his ownership will go up just based off his price. So we can probably get back on the bus and exit Newcastle.
Yes, we can. I think so. Let's have a very, very quick conversation around these 2 guys. Isaiah Papali'i, 568k. Like, when you say those 2 things together. You say Isaiah Papali'i in 568k. You think, what? Like, how is that possible? Now, obviously, he doesn't have the front row forward duel that he had 2 years ago that made him incredibly popular and basically an automatic lock. He's at the Tigers as well. So two things to consider there. But without Brooks, I mean, Luke Brooks was never really been, he's a great runner of the ball, but he's never really been a great playmaker in terms of getting his back rowers in space. Do things change now? I mean, is he worth a punt? And I'm not saying to start the season, but let's just say, for instance, we start to see something from him at the start of the season. Do you just take a punt on him before prices change in round 3? Matt, what do you think?
I think it's really hard, like when you've got these mid-range blokes, but if he's averaging 70 in round 3, then you're going to find a way to get him. I think there's just too many unknowns to start with Isaiah Papali'i. I got him in it towards the end of last year. Didn't quite work out, but didn't really burn me. It was just somebody that we knew had that upside. We knew that was worth, 800k at some time. Like if you wake up from a coma from 2 years ago and you're like, I'm starting my Supercoach team, Isaiah Papali'i's 568k, you'd be salivating. But I watched a lot of the games last year, and Isaiah Papali'i didn't get that involved with the Tigers, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that point is the point to make. He didn't get involved. PPM, 2021, 1.17, 2022, 1.06. Last year, 0.71. So 35% drop off in PPM. If you want to have a bit of a cry for me, boys, Dynasty League 2022, February, we had our draft. I had the mid first round pick, so therefore a mid second round pick. Decided I'd take a stable dual position player in Isaiah Papali'i in my second round in Dynasty. Not good. I think I took Haas in round 1, who averaged 68, and then Papali'i, who averaged like 79, but then did fuck all last year. But what a drop off! Like I think we said in our Tigers team preview, he had the biggest drop off in terms of in terms of dollar amount. Started the season at 831k, bottomed out at 504k for a total loss of 319k. That is a Kai Pearce pull. He lost a full player's value in one season. EPM drop off. It's funny enough though, his coefficient of variance was the best of his career. The problem was he was very consistent at being shit. Like it was just he was just 50 to 55, and that was it. I'd have to see more than just 2 games to take a punt on him. Yeah. But if Caesar squared him up, if Sullivan squared him up, if Braino or Galvin squared him up, and look, we'll never ever see 2021, 2022 Isaiah Papali'i again. Like we're never going to see 78 points, 79 points a game. No. But at 56, if he can get back to say 65, like when you're getting into that 65 point category, you're not looking for 10 points. You're looking for just keeper levels. And he'll never be your 2RF1. But I could see a world where Papali'i averages 65 if the Tigers are somewhat good, and he's your 2RF5 by the end of the season, 2RF4.
Yeah, agreed. I think the 2RF5 is realistic. If you can, and that's what Matty and I did last year. I don't know whether you did as well, but we jumped on that kind of mid-season when he price bottomed out. We thought, fuck, he's dropped 300k.
I jumped on the other Tigers edge who also did fuck all as well.
Fuck. We just thought we'll take a punt on him and see what happens, and it didn't play out. But yeah, like we know the caliber of player that he is. It just kind of looked like he was a bit disinterested last year. So we can move on.
Can I tell you that, like, so I've got AirPods in, so I duck out to go get a beer or use the ladies' room, and I can still hear. And I nearly pissed on the wall listening to Josh's Dynasty story about Isaiah.
It's such a sad story. For anyone that doesn't play Dynasty, you basically draft you get one draft. So you draft a team for the next 5, 10, 15, however long you want to play. They're your players. Like it's not like a regular draft where you redraft every year. I took a second round pick. So I said the second best player on my team would be Isaiah Papali'i, and I did it. 4 days later, he signed for the Tigers, and I was like, all right, cool. He still had a great season in 2022, but then did fuck all. He got me 7th round production for a second round Dynasty pick, and then lost his duel. Fuck him.
Can you imagine 8 years ago if you drafted Luke Brooks in your Dynasty League in the
Thinking he
third
was gonna
round because he was going to be the next Andrew Johns. Can you imagine how you would have had fucking 9 spoons in a row? That would
I don't
be.
know, mate. I don't know.
Tough.
If you've read Twitter this preseason, people will have you believing Luke Brooks is fucking going to average 85 points this season.
Luke Brooks is Andrew Johns on Twitter. So
Yeah,
All right.
could be.
All right,
I haven't seen Luke Brooks fall asleep at the airport before, but hey, things can happen. Things can happen.
Has he ever played good enough to warrant a night that big to fall asleep at the airport?
Yeah. I'll tell you who has had a night that big. Maybe Ryan Hammond from Hammond's Home Finance. I don't know. I reckon he has. I've spoken to him about it, the nights he's had out, and he's had some bangers. But you know what? He also has some really good quality advice when it comes to residential home loans. And the Insight NRL show is, of course, brought to you by Ryan. And guys, with interest rates, they're just booming. They're booming all over the country. It's pretty tough to get ahead. And I'm sure you probably wondered whether your rates are too high, whether you can afford that next home you're looking for, or your dream home, and you don't have to stress anymore. You can contact Ryan, offers confidential lending assistance, absolutely no obligations attached as well. So you can contact him, Ryan, or it's Hammond's Home Finance on Instagram, or it is ryanh@eganwealth.com is his email. So hit him up, let him know that we sent you, and he'll look after you. It won't cost you a thing. Now, Josh Schuster is injured again. Now, the word from NRL Physio on X is that he initially fractured a finger in the off-season. And during that fractured finger, going through conditioning, he has tweaked a calf, which we know from Josh Schuster's injury history. The guy has an injured calf once a month. So for me, he is a complete fade. I wouldn't go near him, but there is a very relevant guy we'll talk about. Now, unfortunately, we can't talk about him right now because he's not a 2RF-centered player. But I'll tell you what. Well,
what do you mean?
Fuck it. Let's just do it.
I can't see the player profile for Corey Waddell. Is that...
Fuck off. No, it's not Corey Waddell, that's for sure. It's Burbo. Now, we would have talked about him in the Centre Wing podcast, but let's just fucking throw him out there. Burbo tipped to start left edge. I mean, is he just a lock now? 277K. Like, if he's starting left edge, you have to have him.
If he gets 4 weeks because Schuster's injured, that's enough for me. I think he might be good enough to hold the position. I think they're paying Schuster so much money that they will try and work him back in. But Burbo has the opportunity to go up.
I can't believe it. I don't believe that they're paying him what's being reported. Like, surely it's like half of that. And like, I think what the media are doing is the Luke Brooks situation, where they're just reporting what are all his incentives added up. If Luke Brooks wins the Dally M, yeah, we'll pay him 1.1 million. I think that's what they're doing with Josh Schuster. I feel so bad for the bloke. Like, I feel like he's maybe on 400. But yeah, I think Burbo's true value lies at centre wing.
I feel sorry for him. Only get paid 400.
Yeah, no, tough life. No, but in all seriousness, Burbo's value presents itself at centre wing. Everything we said about Dylan Lucas, we can just copy and paste onto Burbo. Probably not 60 points, maybe like 45. But Burbo's a good footy player. Like, he showed a lot of talent last year, and he does have the body stability of his brother Tom. Why can't they both be built like Jake, mate?
Strong thumbs.
Yeah, strong thumbs. While we're talking about Orovich's, Gerbo had the lowest coefficient of variance last year, boys, at 0.13. So for anyone that knows what coefficient of variance is, 13% for Gerbo, the lowest coefficient of variance. What a fucking machine.
That is
the question then becomes, though, do we buy Jake just for the memes to have all three?
Why not?
No. I do in draft every year, but suddenly I'm turning this into a draft podcast every time you bring up someone random.
If you manage to draft Tom Trbojevic in a league you don't give a fuck about, do you then go out of your way to draft Jake and Ben?
Yes.
No.
Just be fun for once, for fuck's sake.
Yes, on Burbo, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. 270K. If he's named to start, jump all over him. We don't need to give you stats.
Nah, not at all. Not at all. I agree. Sean Bloor, though, he's in your team, Josh. Like, I mean, coming over from the Tigers, 445K. He's only 6% owned. Like, the upside and the excitement around Sean Bloor has been around for 2-3 seasons, and unfortunately he's been hampered by injury over at the West Tigers, but now he gets a fresh lease on life over at the Melbourne Storm, who are a quality team. He is better than Trent Liero. He will start over Trent Liero. There is absolutely no question in my mind as to that, whether that happens or not. Is there relevance now? Because do you still have him in your team, or is this one of the 30 tweaks that you made this week?
Still got him. Hot boy summer. We've got to have a vibes pick in there. Sean Bloor, yeah, he's better than Liero. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't start. Had a 0.9 PPM last year. If he can play 65 minutes, then fucking unreal. We just look at, let me quickly pull up what Trent did. But yeah, look, on Bloor, we saw what he did against Nathan Brown. Like, that's the highlight that will live in infamy. Like, he saw Nathan Brown his debut, looked really good. Tigers have had huge raps on him. I'm very sad to see him go. I just think he is behind probably Ian Bateman, and now Bole and Matamora and stuff like that. But Melbourne will get the best out of him. Like, that's just undeniable. Melbourne will get him into line. I think he's a guy like these edge guys don't need a full preseason. Like, they don't need to know combinations. Just if Cam Munster tells you to run a fucking hole, just run the hole.
Trent Liero averaged 50 last year, 50.5. And Sean Bloor is a lot more talented than Trent Liero. I wouldn't be surprised to see him average 56, and he's priced at a 43.
And I'll tell you what, Trent Liero averaged 80 minutes per game last year. He did not play 1 minute less.
Yeah, he played 80 minutes in every game except for 2, and that was a 72 and a 74. So Bellyaches loves to play his middles for big minutes. No, his edges for big minutes.
Yeah, I think what bumped his numbers and his average up was that Golden Point game where he played 84 minutes in round 1 against Para. So, if Sean Bloor can do that, he's going to get you 60 plus, I think. It's more a matter of how that rotation plays out. Like, how much faith do you have in Sean Bloor?
Liero with his solid 0.63 ppm. Fucking hell. That's just...
we're not picking him. You'll notice we're not featuring him in this podcast.
In all seriousness, though, like, Sean Bloor had 0.9 ppm. If he got 0.9, he averaged fucking 80, which is not happening. But even if he got like a 0.75, and we have that across 80 minutes, that's 60 points a game. And I think 0.75 is realistic if Liero is putting up 0.63. Liero also had about 4,000 errors a game, which I just don't back Sean Bloor into having.
Yeah, he'll have like maybe 3,000, 2,500, probably no way near 4,000 errors per game.
Oh yeah, it's definitely 4,000. Don't look into that either. Like, it's definitely 4,000 a game.
Just trust us. So we can move off Sean Bloor, but there's 2 guys I'd like to talk about. One is Jason Taumalolo, Matty, because you were his biggest fan in the Cowboys podcast. Do you still have him? 7% owned, 440k.
So I don't own him. If I did own him, it wouldn't be in second row forward. It would be due to how mid the front row forward position is, and he still has the front row forward spot. Him getting the captaincy taken off him interests me a little bit. They've given it to Ruben Cotter. They've taken it from Taumalolo and Townsend and given it to Dearden and Cotter. I wonder if that's a little bit of a changing of the guard. I just thought Taumalolo at 30, maybe he could come back a bit healthier this year. Could still have good impact. But the more and more I look at it, the more and more I look at the Cowboys, I think Taumalolo's time might be up.
When do we give up? Like,
now.
When the fuck does this preseason chat stop? Because unfortunately, I had him in my team as well for a period of time, and I was like, fuck, what if? Like, what if he comes back? But his minutes...
He's only 30.
Yeah, but like, he's been playing since he's about fucking 13 and been playing 80 minutes a game since he's been about 13. Like,
yeah, well, he had a mustache at 13.
His average minutes per game in the last 5 years, 64, 61, 59, 55, 49.
Yeah.
Straight down. PPM is dropping. Like, the only saving grace is just like McLean is old as fuck, Granville's old as fuck, Hess sucks. Like, that's the only saving grace for Lolo. We bought him last year. Literally, I remember sitting on my podcast and he was priced at 58. And I said, well, he can't get any worse. and then he put up 13 points worse than what he fucking did, and was terrible. Like, if he came out and averaged 53, I wouldn't be shocked. If he averaged 29 points a game, I'd also wouldn't be shocked. Like, Todd Payton said some concerning things about players. He was asked, why did you change the captaincy? And he said, players won't be around much longer, and I'm not a huge Chad Townsend guy, but I don't think Lolo's long for the NRL. Well, for the Cowboys. Can Lolo just go to the Dragons?
Oh, I was about to say the Dragons would be the ultimate destination for Lolo, wouldn't it? Like that'd be ideal. But look, fuck, it's not going to happen. He's going to end up somewhere off the bench.
And JDB, just play 80 minutes. That's it. Flanagan doesn't move off it.
Can I just tell you something? I just Googled, when does Jason Taumalolo's contract end? And it's the end of the 2027 season because he signed that 10-year contract.
Yep.
At the time, I was like, what a deal. Like, this guy is... I generally thought he would be like the greatest forward of all time.
He signed till he's only 34. Like, it wasn't a bad contract at the time.
I reckon it was. I reckon it was a terrible for him. I reckon it was a terrible contract because he got locked in. He got locked into $1 million a year. That's fine. But fuck, this guy at his peak, if he got traded, right, and if he got moved on or re-signed somewhere else, he would be putting up 1.2, 1.3 as a minimum every single year. He sold himself short potentially $3 million over the 10 years.
You reckon the play when he was 24 was to sign for like 4 years, 4 million.
Yep.
And then when he's 28, just go, fuck it, give me 5 years, $7 million.
100%.
We could have got
and that's what everybody else does. It's what every other player does. You don't sign 10-year contracts. No one knows what's going to happen over that period of time. I know that he's probably thinking, injury, I need security, and that's fine. I understand that.
His contract is also probably back-ended like the fucking shit ton. Like out of his 10 million, so what's that, $1 million a year? He probably was only making like 600K for the first couple of years. So if you're Lolo and you're like, fuck, I'm 34 and going to be making like 1.4 million a year, like it's hard to turn that down.
And I get to pay 34 minutes a game and get paid that much money.
Yeah.
How good.
Problem with Lolo is his body as well. 2019, 18 games. 2020, 16 games. 2021, 15 games. 2023, 24 games, which was nice. But then last year, 16 games as well. So he's not playing many games, not playing many minutes, shit PPM.
Yeah. And the only reason we're talking about him would be front row forward.
Yes.
Jewel. That's it. That's the only reason we're talking about him. So, yeah, if that's the case and you need a bit of a reality check, it's like, all right, cool, let's just move on. But I'll tell you who we don't need a reality check from, Angus Crichton. We've gone into bat for this bloke all preseason because he is 6.1% owned, 410K. He's coming off a career year in 2022. It seems like we've just completely forgotten how good this guy was besides last year. 47 in base, 19 in evade and create per game. He played 70-plus minutes per game as a bare minimum. He was the Kangaroos back rower. Like, what are we missing here with Angus Crichton?
You talk about a guy like Taumalolo who's washed, who's universally washed. Fuck, if you're on social media, Crichton's the same. Everyone's off him. He's done. He's useless. 2 years ago, he was the first person I'd pick in my side. I'd open up the app. Yep. I don't really give a fuck how much everyone else costs. Crichton's
a year ago, I was.
Roosters were weird last preseason. Like, they had the Crichton stuff. They had all those weird Facebook rumors about Cheese and the team hates him and blah, blah, blah. I remember reading them all thinking fucking whatever. But, the Roosters just had a weird vibe last year.
Yep.
The problem is Angus had a bad year when everyone else fucking evolved. So now it's like Angus fighting against like 18 other people for a spot.
Yeah, it's like, Nat Butcher. What about Nat Butcher? What about Egan Butcher? What about all the edge back rowers? What about the middles? Like, it's Angus Crichton. I don't care. Doesn't bother me at all in the slightest. I think he's still worth looking at for sure. And because he's so cheap as well, like you get a 70-minute.
Like, yeah, I don't expect him to play 80 minutes on the edge. I don't expect any of these Roosters players to play 80 on the edge. But Wong can't play through the middle. Egan Butcher can't play through the middle. Tupanua can at a pinch. But you'd much rather play Angus for 40 on the edge and then 20 through the middle. Yeah, like you'd just much rather that.
Even at 60 minutes, he's a buy. He's a comfortable buy at 60 minutes. So, yeah, look, I would definitely prefer him over Wong at this point in time.
Is he in your team? Is he in either of your boys' teams?
No, because of his price. Because he is very easy to move to. He is cheaper than all these other guys that we have. So, and this is, my golden rule of build expensive and downgrade. Don't build cheap and upgrade. So for me, like right now, live trade alert, I did P Corey to Elliot. Like Josh Curran down to Angus Crichton gives me money. If for whatever reason Crichton did get the start. So he'd be in there if he's named.
Yep. You know what I could do? I could do Fermor down to Crichton right now, and I would have $200,000 in the bank to go up to Payne Haas at front row forward. And that's exactly the perfect example of what you just spoke about, Josh, and being able to kind of just build expensive. You can move your players around and get better players in. Much easier. But yeah, look, we've talked about Gus Crichton heaps.
It's why we all should have hands over Lussick. And if you play fantasy, it's why you should have Lussick over hands, because there's just a price difference, and it's so much easier to downgrade.
Yep, for sure. We won't go on about Gus again. We're all big fans. Look, if you want to hop in the Discord and ask us questions about Gus, and we'll give you a detailed answer on that, hop in there. I'm not talking about him for a fucking third podcast in a row. I feel like he's
to be fair though. If one player warranted it would be Gus. If he might if he gets named TLT.
Go on.
If he gets named TLT, we might on Wednesday after TLT, we might just do an hour Gus highlights preview.
Hey, I'm for
might
that.
just have an emergency
At
Gus
my place.
Crichton podcast.
Come on over.
A Gus
I'll
circle
fly
jerk.
down.
Hey, no, it's not the first time I said circle jerk on this podcast. Matty lets it rip every single week on the NBL show. So
Yeah, it's not the first time this week.
All right, let's move into the cheapies, because this is where you're going to enable a lot of them, and we've got a fucking few cheapies to get through, boys.
Go to Bonus Bank first.
Yeah,
Do it.
yeah, good on Bonus Bank. They're, if you didn't know, they're Australia's #1 match betting site. You can go to bonusbank.com.au. You can use their code INSIGHT to get 25% off the first month of your premium subscription. So they give you a ton of different tutorials on how to take advantage of, bonus bets and different things like that. So go and start making some money with Bonus Bank and use the 25% off code INSIGHT at checkout. Now,
So it's free. So it's free to sign up. So you get the opportunity to sort of work out what they're all about for starters, and then to get access to their calculators, like where you want to spend your money, with no risk bets. You pay for the subscription, so you could get it back just by chucking $200 in some sporting bets accounts, whether you're betting Ladbrokes against Sportsbet. I hate pointing out particular vendors, but they take access to all the smaller ones as well. BetR, BetM, all the Gold Bet, all the little ones. And you can take advantage of every promo they get. I've actually really enjoyed
match betting at its simplest is just finding discrepancies in the market where you have a guaranteed profit. So, for example, in the footy, if one team's paying $2 and another team's paying $2.10, another bookmaker, it's just guaranteed profit. And
just bet on both.
Yeah, exactly. Bet on both. You get a free outcome. A lot of these places have, like, if your team loses, get a bonus bet back. If your team's up by 6 at halftime. I remember I was actually a member before jumping on this podcast, and we had a dream collect. It was like, I think it was in the NBA. Team was up by 12 at halftime, so your bet automatically got paid out, and then the other team came back and won. Double collect, absolutely risk-free money. So yeah, definitely worth checking on. But it's great. We go from talking about making free money to trying to make some free money with these cheapies, with some
50K to be
one of the better segues I've heard on this show.
Morgan
Smithies. Go on.
He's an interesting one. 6% owned, 345K. I've been against Morgan Smithies just because of the fucked suspension that Horse has. It's just like when Smithies gains momentum, Horse is back, and it's like, does he start? Josh Papali'i has spoken at length about enjoying coming off the bench, and he likes doing that. But then Horsburgh was so good at 13. Do you want to move him a prop? And in the modern game, like Horsburgh's on a mad ball player, so it's not going to change his role too much. Smithies has played for his country at a young age. I feel like I could say everything I've said about Kai Pearce-Paul. Same with Morgan Smithies. Played for his country at a young age. Someone gave me a stat today, boys, that Morgan Smithies had the most tackles out of marker in the Super League last year. Loves a hustle play. Loves to give effort. Loves a hustle play.
That's a good stat.
Yeah, great stat that was sent to me. I should have written down the name. If Ricky comes out and says he's our 13, what do we do?
In round one?
No. If Ricky says he's my we bought him to start.
All right. first of all, it's Ricky. I don't believe a fucking word that comes out of his mouth. Don't care.
It's our boy.
It's like the most vague thing. He'll be like, he's trained well. We've got a lot of competition.
You know what's going to happen? Do you know what's going to happen? They're going to go, yeah, Morgan Smith, he's our 13. Tom Starling, he's really earned this starting hooker role, and we're going to back in Tom Starling for 80 minutes, and then you basically know that his Smithies thing is also a lie because he fucking hates Tom Starling. So, yeah, I can't do it. I just don't trust the bloke.
When it comes to Ricky Stewart, you know who I'm a big fan of? James Schiller, who sat in my team for the whole year after playing the first 2 games and never getting a price rise out of it.
I was actually on a walk today. I was having a walk today, and I was thinking to myself,
oh, yeah.
remember how no one says there's any cheapies, and then James Schiller just out of fucking nowhere got named? Like, just out of fucking nowhere, just some random gets named, and you hold it.
Stephen Bradbury.
But Smithies, like, he has a similar play comp to, like, Victor Radley. Like, good ball player, loves a tackle, might spend 6 weeks on the sideline getting aggressive English man, which Ricky seems to love. I don't know. Like, it's hard. You think back to John Bateman, he was 400k when he came over, he averaged 75. Like, it's just like Ricky can do good things with English males. Elliot Whitehead's, say what you want about Elliot Whitehead, he's played nearly 300 games, which says a lot. It's just fucked, isn't it? Because Hawes is back in round 4. And it's like you get one guaranteed price rise, and then fucking you're sitting there clenching your ass at 401 on Tuesday round 4.
I don't think I can. With the plethora of options that we have, I actually would just rather back in Justin Matamua, who is also only 3% owned at 238k, and maybe that's my Tigers bias. I'm not 100% sure. It probably is. But fuck, like, how many question marks do you need to have? You said on another show, I think it might have been the last show, how many ifs do we need to have on a player before we go, too many? Like, how many ifs are there on Morgan Smithies or any Raiders player at the moment that isn't named Joseph Tarpany?
Or Danny Levi.
Just like it. Just lock in Dylan Egan. Just lock him in.
Yeah, we'll talk on him.
That's
soon.
A good little segue.
We can talk on him now. So for anyone not in the loop, Tom Trbojevic scored 2 tries in 20 minutes against the Dragons in a scrimmage, and then came off and then said, all right, cool, let's go to Vegas. So he's not going to play any trials.
Cool.
But after that, Shane Flanagan came out and just basically gave this young kid, Dylan Egan, huge raps. I remember he played the trials last year. I think he played like the Resi's trial in the week 1 last year. He was really good. Played New South Wales Cup all last year. But Shane Flanagan has said, makes a lot of great defensive reads, fittest player at the club. Like, he'll put his head where others won't. If you say be here, he'll be here. Like, Flanagan's had a huge praise on him. And there seems to be a vacant edge spot up for grabs. Jaden Sewell will have one of them, and Jack Burr's now moving to right centre. So there's an edge spot up for grabs, and Dylan Egan at 204k, now 3% owned. That's his ownership has tripled since I last looked at it, when it was like 0.9%. But yeah, like, we don't have huge stats on him, boys, but if you see a guy at 204k get named to start,
you don't need him to do 204k. What does he need to score? 19 to hold his price?
Just get on the field.
Yeah, I don't care. You walk
Franklin
on, you
Pele.
get points. No, we don't talk about Franklin Pele on this show.
But, like, he's sort of Dylan Egan, and look, I want to watch a bit more of him, but, like, could be like a Jacob Preston or someone like that. Like, just a hard-working bloke.
My player comp was Jackson Ford.
Yep. Great.
Just very solid.
Yeah. I mean, look, if he ends up like Jackson Ford, great. He's a no-brainer. 204k basement price. Just chuck him in your team now. The good thing is he can be a placeholder when you move on to someone else.
He's had more buzz than fucking Viliami Fafita, who's 25% owned.
Hey, good shout. Just move him across.
But he's got a ripper name. Like, I tell you what, Dylan Egan, boring as shit name. Viliami.
Brother of Wade.
You get Viliami and Fafita.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Talk about explosive back roller.
People are just typing it in wrong. They're just like, they're looking for Kickow and they're looking for David Fafita.
Fuck me, he's 200k. What happened? And he got with the Dragons?
Bad season last year.
I woke up from a coma.
Boys.
Justin Matamua,
Yeah.
our Tigers boy, Braino. You got your jersey on, repping the lads.
Yep.
Been awfully quiet at the Tigers camp this preseason, which I'm not too sure how I feel about that.
I like it personally.
The only real preseason noise I've heard is Benji rates Galvin and said he could start this season. But apart from that, like if Egan doesn't start, if he's like named on the bench or whatever, like we're gonna have one of these like sub 250k guys. Is Matamua the guy?
I'm gonna go ahead and predict that he starts off the bench, but he works his way into the starting 13 jersey by Origin. That's kind of the way that I see it going. They're just going to give him some time. He didn't play a lot of NRL football last year, so it doesn't really make sense for me for him to go, yep, I'm going to start at 13 in round 1 after playing how many games last year? Fucking 2? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think Benji will do that. But again, hey, new coach, new philosophy, the amount of things that Benji said over the preseason, and he's talking about making sure that his bench is strong, but also talking about the fact that everyone is going to earn their spot this year through preseason.
Also, age is no number. Like if you're good enough if you're good enough, you're old enough. Thing with the Tigers is Mattrix as well. Like we suck. Like there's no expectations for us this year. So let's just build. What's the point of rolling out Alex Twal, a 30-year-old Alex Twal? Like yes, we love him, but what benefit do we have of rolling out a 32-year-old David Clemmer, a 30-year-old Alex Twal? Like when we've got guys like Fainu and Galvin and Matamua, all these guys that are going to be around for years to come. And you want to try and get as much combination set when you have your $1.3 million man coming next year.
I agree with you. Like, why not suck and play young players rather than suck and play David Clemmer? I think David Clemmer would benefit from a trade. I know that like a trade is an NRL thing that doesn't happen that much. I know I follow a lot of the NBA, but like, send David Clemmer somewhere else and get a younger piece back. I think that's something that the Tigers should look into. Like, you know what? You're going to be outside of the top 8 this year. That's fantastic. Try and build on something.
Yeah. If we could get a first draft pick back, I reckon we'd be in a pretty good spot.
You're right, though. You'd rather suck and build these young kids than just be in mediocrity. You'd rather be the San Antonio Spurs tanking for Wemby than being the Atlanta Hawks and just being mid as fuck.
Very quickly, who do the Spurs tank for now that they're tanking again after Wemby?
Jeremy Sochan.
Bronny James?
Jeremy Sochan at point guard.
It could be Alex Sarr. Could be Sarr. Now, look, a couple of guys. Actually, we're on the Tigers map, so let's talk Samuel Fainu. Like a lot of props talking about this guy coming over from Manly. Everyone's a big fan of this guy. I mean,
I don't know enough.
7.5% owned though.
I don't.
Josh,
yeah, I'd love to pretend like I fucking know everything. I don't know enough about Samuel. I know a little bit about Latu, but I don't know enough about S. Fainu. I know there's huge raps, but maybe you know a little bit more than me. He looks like he may jag the 17 jersey.
Yeah,
best.
I think that's the best situation. I think with Fainu was Samuel Fainu. I mean, all I've seen from this guy, I've seen some New South Wales Cup stuff from him, but I've also seen him getting a punch on in New South Wales under-19 Origin, and I'm a fan of that. Yeah, so get the man in the team.
Need some mongrel. Get around.
We do. We got Johnny Bateman, but we need someone to back up Johnny Bateman,
Johnny B.
Johnny
I fucking love Johnny B.
Good. He was good last year too.
Probably 17th jersey at best, so 10th Tuesday. We had a hard on for Sean Bloor. There may be a slight kink in that. In Jack Howarth Mattrix, 500k a year man. Bellamy said he doesn't want to rush him, but is now the time to get him in?
Well, look, like I don't think we'll rush him when he's 30 either, and he's still not playing first grade.
The world's most expensive Queensland Cup player.
I mean, like, he just feels like a guy that's there and thereabouts every year and then just doesn't get named and gets one game at Origin every year if Christian Welch gets a run or something random. Like,
what's that saying?
I don't know.
He's
like
2 years away from being 2 years away?
Yeah. I'm just not ever going to add Howarth in my team.
No, you will. You'll add him every preseason until team list Tuesday.
And then someone to fill the spots.
Yeah. He's just a great preseason place
Poor man's Dylan Egan. Like, at least someone talks about him. Bellamy doesn't
He is-
talk about Howarth.
He is.
Nobody
he is
talks about Howarth.
He is Titans Greg Marzoo from about 2018 to 2021.
Hey,
You hear all his
if he
preseason
turns
hype.
into Greg Marju of 2023 in 2026, that's fine as long as I jump on that year.
I watch so much NRL and I don't even know what Jack Howarth looks like. Like, honestly. Like,
All right, let's finish up with a guy we probably should have spoke about last episode, but sticking to our rule of their primary positions.
you
Liam
my boy,
Knights.
Blue.
Liam Knights, 332k. We've spoken about it all preseason, boys. The Dogs have no one. And Liam Knights has come over, played some okay footy for the Dogs last year, but looks like he's going to cement that starting spot with Ryan Sutton being off for injury. You've got Max King taking at one spot, current at 13, you would imagine. And then the benches, Patolo, Curtis Morin, Harrison Edwards, RFM's just left as well. So there's definitely some minutes there. Is he a guy? I think it's a weird situation for Knight, boys. He's too expensive to bench, but is he good enough to start as your front row forward too?
If he is starting prop in round 1, I'm going to say yeah. It just depends. We're looking at front row forward as one of those kind of low upside positions, aren't we? So if Liam Knight comes and gets you 40 and Payne Haas gets you 75, you've got 115 points. And we had this chat the other day on the front row forward pod. Like, you're going to get 120 points from your starters, 115 points from your starters, most of all. If Liam Knight's your second and you want to get Payne Haas and it frees up cash elsewhere, then you do that. I think with the lack of middles, I don't think it's not about. I don't think it's a bad option. I think Liam Knight could be a decent shout as your second front row forward, Matty. What do you think?
I've made the decision to go a Payne Haas. Honestly, chatting about Tino made me salivate for him a little bit, but like a Payne Haas and a Tino and a Liam Knight over a Max King and a Ruben Cotter. I think that I would rather spend my money that way. And then, I've got Sam Hughes and Henry on the bench. I don't think you play Liam Knight at second row forward due to the front row forward duel. But yeah, look, Payne Haas and Liam Knight, I think I'll score as many points as Ruben Cotter and Max King.
Well, that's the
where I'm going to leave that.
Where do you want your money? How do you want your structure? Do you want 2 550k guys, or do you want 1.1 million made up in a primo and a cheapie? And I just think more flexibility with Max King and Cotter. Like, it doesn't have to be those 2 guys. It could be, 2 other guys. I just think if Knight shits the bed, then what? And that's what I'm asking myself.
If Tino scores 200s to start the year or Payne Haas scores 200s to start the year, then what for you?
Cool. Well played. Mad. I'd much rather risk it with Tino. I'd much rather risk it with Payne Haas getting an extra 30 points and me not getting on that, but having Hines Cleary, Turbo Ponga, Brown, then getting Liam Knight, who gets 18 points in 26 minutes, and Curtis Morin plays more. Because then you're like, well, fuck, I've got to find 300k to get another decent front row forward. And that's the only reason.
And
if you take the punt on Haas and it works, well played. I'd much rather just get 120 points in 60-point increments than pay nearly $750,000 for Haas.
Does everyone remember that there was a probably 3 or 4 week play, might have been a 3-week play, where Liam Knight, when he was at the Rabbitohs, went on a bit of a run last year and he scored a couple of 60s, 70s, and everyone's looking at Liam Knight going, oh, fuck, this could be a go. And I was a bee's dick off getting this guy in, and then he went 11-7 or something, and his minutes just tanked out of nowhere, and he's so capable of doing nothing in a game. And that's just what scares me. Liam Knight, I don't know whether he has that genuine base and that work rate. Like, obviously, he's been playing on an edge. Like, playing at prop's very different than playing on an edge. But is he capable of playing?
Don't be the optimist, but you just said a 330k player scored like a 60 and a 67. Like,
yeah. On an edge, though. Different role.
With it. Yeah. I just look. I don't know if I'm going to be comfortable starting him.
Yeah.
And I could completely pivot, but I think Liam Knight is somebody that you would rather go. You'd rather spend 100K from a Henry to a Liam Knight than not.
So shout out to the Supercoach Collective. They did a big breakdown on Liam Knight. So since 2019, games over 35 minutes, Knight has an average of 47 points per game. That's through 44 games with a 41.5-minute sample size. So he's played over 35 minutes with a PPM of 1.13, priced at 32.5. He would only need 38 minutes to give 10 points of value based off his PPM, like his historic PPM. So you'd need to see Liam Knight play 38 minutes to get him to 42.5 points, which do you believe there's 40 minutes for him getting around?
Yeah. Like, look at the lineup.
Yeah.
I think there has to be, doesn't there?
I think there's 45, 50 for him.
Yeah. I don't know about 50. I think that's a bit of a stretch.
I think 40 is probably where he's going to cap out at.
How many minutes do you think Sam Hughes is going to play? 25?
30?
Give me Harrison Edwards. Where's he gone? Like, he was great last year.
There's 33 minutes.
I think Knight plays 40, King plays 55 to 60, and then the rest is sort of filled in by. Well, hang on. So let's do some math quickly.
Patolo.
There's 160 minutes between two middles. So if we think Knight's going to play 40, King's going to play 55, so that's 95, and then we have to find another 55 minutes, and that could easily be 25 for Hughes and 30 for
25 and 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's out of the question for Knight to play 40 minutes.
Yeah, I think 40 is fine. But I mean, and look, that might be enough. If you're happy with 40 from Liam Knight and that's your plan, and you're going to go and use that cash elsewhere to get a better play, then great.
That's the mental side of Supercoach. Are you going to be okay? Like, in the preseason, if Liam Knight scores you 42 points, that's 10 points of value. And that's what you want.
Yeah.
But are you okay opening your app on Monday morning and seeing Liam Knight scored 40 points? Like,
yeah,
you can sit here and do all the preseason analysis you want and go, oh, well, if he just gets 40 points, amazing. It's much different to when he actually does get 40 week in, week out, and you're sitting there going, fuck, because we sit there and say 10 points of value, that stops after a while. If he's just pumping at 40, that stops. And that's
the Christian Welch effect from last year.
That's okay at front row forward. Like, I don't think it's okay in other positions, but I'm okay with that at front row forward.
Yeah, I agree, especially for what you're paying for him.
But why, though? This is what I find interesting. Why is it okay at front row forward? Why not look at it as a collective 17?
Because you're going to spend that money to in a higher upside position. You're going to spend 200K at 5'8" to get Dylan Brown instead of Ezra Mann. And I think the upgrade between that is worth more.
Haas and Knight are the same price in terms of Cotter and King. And this is the approach that I'm sort of taking, is not looking at it as positions, but looking at it as holistic money spent. And it's the same price for 260s compared to a 75 and a 45. It doesn't matter if the money is being spent in other positions because it's the same collective price in one thing. And I know that that's weird to think about it, but that's why I'm looking at it as I'm not looking at it as my hooker is only scoring me 50 points. I'm looking at it as my 17th option is scoring me 50 points. And that's psychology that I'm trying to look at it this year and trying not to tilt so much about players not performing. And you asked about Haas if he scores 100 points.
And that's the hard part when you're looking at 2RF, aren't we? Like, it's the most volatile position this year in Supercoach, I think, aside from centre wing. We know centre wing every single year is very volatile. We know it's up and down. 2RF could be as bad this year. No one's looking at primo options. No one's looking at grabbing for feeder. We're not loading up at 2RF with 600, 700K guys like we do in previous years. We're looking at loading up with 400K punts. So now it just creates way more questions than answers. And we don't have them all.
Do you want to compound that with more punts at front row forward and hooker?
Yeah.
And a high upside centre wing? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's right. I think that's probably the risk that we're playing. The game we're playing at the moment is, do you want 2 cheap hookers? Do you want to also then play the game of a cheap front row forward and a heap of cheap centre wings? because that could be incredibly bad.
That's the thing. I don't think either of us three are ever winning $1,000 for top scorer of the round, because I just don't think we take enough risks to get that massive ceiling. But we'll hopefully be there or thereabouts just through consistency. Like, we'll never be the first rank, but hopefully we're always in that sort of top 15%. And if you're in the top 15% every week, you'll go close to winning the game. People think you've got to have massive scores every week. Like, if you're in the top 20% of scores every single week, you'd go very close to winning the competition.
Yep. 100%. Guys, I don't know about you, but I'm spent. Spent nearly two hours talking about 2RF.
And we spent half an hour talking shit before we record.
Yeah, we did too. But I enjoyed that. It's good fun. We've talked through cheapies. We've talked through the mid-ranges, which there's millions. We've talked through the three primo options. We didn't talk about a fair few players. Molly Olakwatu, blah, blah, blah. If you hop in the comments and you say, oh, well, you don't rate this player, it's not because we don't rate them. It's because maybe there's so many players. There's so many players. We couldn't cover them all. But
it's because I've got a wife and kids and I want to play 2K tonight. Is why I didn't talk about Hamali Olakwatu.
We'd be here until midnight for sure.
Boys, give me the floor for literally 45 seconds, and I will say overs, under, or underpriced, overpriced.
Okay.
Fafita overpriced, Tino overpriced, Hopgood overpriced, Nicker at value, Yo at value, Olakwatu overpriced, Carrigan overpriced, Tohu overpriced, Sorensen overpriced, Katoa value. They're your top 10. So if you're looking at any of the premiums in that top 10, hopefully my quick overs and unders has given you some insight. That hopefully that stops the comments of why didn't you talk about X player when we're 2 hours in.
If anyone's seen the GIF of the Hangover where the guy's trying to do the math at the table at when he's playing poker and all the pluses and minuses and numbers are coming up in front of the screen, that was just me trying to work out what Josh was going through. I'm going to have to watch this back. I don't think there's anything else to be said on 2RF. We've covered it all. We've done our best. It's been 2 hours of some dribble, some good chat. Hopefully you've taken something from it. But before you do, there's been some good chat. But guys, don't forget to...
Real quickly, we didn't talk about Mitch Barnett. I think Mitch Barnett's a really good front row forward option.
Only if he's goal kicking.
No,
if he's goal kicking.
We didn't talk about him in the front row forward podcast because he was 2RF at the start, so we dismissed him. I think he's a really good front row forward option, just quietly. So I just want to leave. I'm
going to throw this as a chapter of the episode right at the end for like 3 seconds. Like, Mitch Barnett, good option.
Podcast ends 10 seconds after the time.
Guys, hit like, hit subscribe, hit follow, hit review, do all those things. We would appreciate it. Don't miss another episode. We've got tons coming. We've got the half and the 5-8 episodes coming up. You might think it's pretty obvious. Maybe the episode will go for 5 minutes. You just don't know. But you're going to have to tune in anyway to find out. And it will. You know what, Matty? It's going to be episode 100 of the Inside NRL show as well. So maybe we'll do something fun. Who knows? We'll give away something. Yeah.
Maybe
we'll give away something. Years. Love it. Guys, join the Discord. Join the Unlimited group. We set the code at the start of the episode. Don't make me say it again. We've got a special episode coming up. Halfbacks are coming up next. We'll see you soon. Been listening to the Inside NRL show. Catch you later.
What about Jeremiah Deno?
Cheer, yeah.
Oh, fuck off.